Okay. Kick 'em. We are live. Yep. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Kingston Planning Board meeting. Today is Monday, July 18th, 2022. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll begin with introductions. My name is Wayne Platt Jr. I'm the chairman. We also have Robert Jacobson, Matt Gillis, Sage Newkirk, and Suzanne Cahill is here. She's the planning director. Kyla D-Day is the assistant planner. And we also have Assistant Corporation Counsel Matthew Jankowski. Exits are at both sides of the council chambers. Bathrooms are to my right. And if there's an emergency, we have to leave the building. We're going to use the staircase, and then there's doors at either end of the staircase at the bottom. We're not going to use the elevator. I ask that folks silence their cell phones at this time. Okay, moving on to item number 1 is adoption of the June 21st, 2022 Planning Board meeting transcripts and minutes. Everybody's received a copy of them. Any questions or comments, deletions, additions? All right, at this time, I'll make a motion that we adopt those minutes and transcripts. Do I have a second? Matt Jankowski. Matt Gillis is a second on that. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, moving on to public hearings. Item number 2 is 166 Delaware Avenue and 7 Court Street, a lot line revision of the lands of Thomas Yanta Jr. and Linda Sasso and Howard Johnson. Section block and lot is 56.28-1-13 and 56.28-1-14. Secret determination zone R1, Ward 8. Thomas Yanta Jr. and Linda Sasso and Howard Johnson are the applicant and owners. Is there anybody besides the applicant owners wishing to speak on item number 2? All right. Can the applicants and owners come up to the end of the table here? Have a seat. Welcome. Can you turn your microphones on until they get green. Then you also have to kind of swallow them too, the microphones. Can you state your names for the record, please?
Howard Johnson.
Bert Wingy.
Okay. Welcome. All right, let me pull up my screen here. Okay, we're trying to pull up our screen here. Okay. All right, well, while we're pulling that up, I see the application is for a lot line revision of 2 parcels to address existing encroachments. Parcel A at 166 Delaware will convey 72.45 square feet to 7 Court Street, which is known as Parcel B, to rectify an encroachment of roof and eaves that currently hang over the property line. And 7 Court Street, which is Parcel B, will convey 122.45 square feet to 166 Delaware, Parcel A. And this will address an encroachment of a portion of the Delaware Avenue house. And existing encroachments on the public right-of-way will not be addressed with this. That includes stair portions of both houses, retaining walls, porches, and planter beds. That sound correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, do you fellas want to show us what we're talking about here, where we're dealing with? Can you want to?
Bert, do you want to just grab one of the mics and then just point to, but you need a mic, Bert.
Yeah, take that with you.
Just
All
put.
right.
Also need a new set of ears.
Yeah.
Because I've got terrible hearing.
I
So
got
I
you.
got a lot of echoes going on
Yeah.
back and forth here. Okay, the Yanta's house over here encroaches on this triangular piece of property, which we propose to have, and Mr.
Johnson.
Mr. Johnson owns this parcel and the house here. His house, after doing a survey for the Yanta parcel, in order to straighten out their encroachment, I also determined that Mr. Johnson's property also encroached on the Yanta property. So I was mainly in contact. My original clients was Yanta and Sassos. So when I created this new property line, my main intent was to keep it off so that the entire building was on Mr. Johnson's property. And so that's what I did. So we have this parcel proposed to sell. Yanta is going to sell to Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Johnson is going to sell that to Yanta and Sassos.
Are there still some encroachment issues with like roof overhangs or anything like that? Is there anything like that going on?
I show the dashed line here is the eaves.
Okay.
They're approximately a foot off the side of the building.
And staff has taken a look at that. What's anything? Take a mic there. Yeah.
Yeah, upon review of the maps, there are definitely some discrepancies that have brought up some concerns for my Office of Corporation Counsel, and some answers that we want to get, particularly with regard to the right of way off Delaware. It seems like the map that we're utilizing here, the property lines seem to have been adjusted further up from where the actual road and sidewalk are. And it definitely has created some concerns for me that we want to get to the bottom of these answers and see if an adjustment is made with those property lines, if it actually corrects the issue at hand. It's definitely something that I know my office would like to get some further information from our engineers. The map that we're looking at is it looks like it was over the original survey map over 100 years old, and unfortunately it wasn't filed for 112 years after it was actually made. So again, there's some answers that I would like to get with regard to this application before the planning board actually approves the request. But
Originally, when we did this, if I go up. The fence here, it's been here. And so when this originally happened, I figured the house was 100% on the property line. Because there's already an existing fence, there was a wall put in here. And the grandfather back in the day, when I bought this house, kind of laughed at me and said, well, when I die, they'll have to figure it out. Yes, I did build on your property. And originally what happened was this house and this house were in the same family. They built the house for the daughter, and that's how this house came around. When I went down, I got the maps, and part of the problem we're having right at the moment is an issue of points on mortgages. Priscilla has been waiting now for 2 months to try to buy this, and it's already cost her 2.5 points. And when I went down, I was given the papers one evening, had 15 minutes to look them on over and sign them, and away they went. When I went down there, I called him to come to find out that 12 inches of my overhang hung on their property. So what he did, he dropped the plumb line down off of that, down onto the ground, and gave me that much property to go with this. But I'm still short almost 50 square feet. My concern is if we go by the property line, I can't work here, I can't work here, and I can't work here, because if I do, 18 inches off the house, I can't repair the siding, I can't do anything. And the only other,
That corner is the telephone pole, which
Right.
is the end of the fence.
right,
This one is only about 1.5 feet away from the fence. So you're
Right.
not gaining that much by coming over to the fence.
when I talked with Mr. Yanta, because he wants this to go through, he assured me that some form of language would be put into that I'd have a right of way around the house so I could at least work on it. The rest is in your hands on which way you want to rule and so on and so forth. But I was assured that if I leave it alone, that he would give me the right of way for some of the property so that I could work on my house if it got approved. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try and come up with a couple of alternatives that we can look at. Okay, so right now, as Bert was saying, this is a new property line here, which will give the Yantas, it'll take care of us, or I'm sorry, right there. We'll take care of this encroachment, okay? And then the other line is this way, that takes care of the eve encroachment of Mr. Johnson onto the Yanta property. So one suggestion would be to take and keep this line the way it is and then run it up the fence line straight to the back, okay, to create that straight line, straight shot almost, and then give that property to Mr. Johnson, and this would stay with Mr. Yanta. If I know the Yantas are not here tonight, if they would agree to that, that could be option one as approved by the board. We could always approve it the way it exists on the drawing as an option two. We just think that this is a much cleaner and neater way to do it, and would resolve, I'm sure that this being the fence, these people are probably using this land back here and maintaining it. So it would pretty much cover an encroachment that really isn't a physical encroachment, but just a user appreciation encroachment, so to speak. The other issue that we have is that there, because of the way the Delaware Avenue right-of-way is, there's a very extensive encroachment into the public right-of-way. So what we'd also like to do is get this cleaned up. Legally, we don't know the way it might be handled. Certainly the city would want these property owners that are enjoying this land area to provide the city with indemnity and insurance, naming the city as additionally insured, because a good portion of the house, the porch, are on the city's property. So we would want that. Whether that ultimately ends up in an easement agreement, I think can be maybe a secondary, Matt. The public right of way, could that be a separate agreement after the subdivision is carried off? Please, Mike, I'm sorry.
Making a condition, approving the application, but making a condition that we do need to address this, and they may have to pay for an additional survey themselves as part of trying to address where the actual right of way is, and correcting this issue that seems to.
Right, so that would go for both the Yantas encroachments and Howard, also the ones that are on yours, right? Okay, so that would be for both properties, but they would be separate.
And I think just for clarity, if it's determined through engineering that that is actually city area, I mean, it is a very old section of city that has not been surveyed in years, then Bert may have to update the maps and then go, if the city decides to send it through common council to rectify this, they would need new descriptions if the city is going to convey that back. If the road's off. I mean, this dates back to late 1800s.
Well, believe it or not, the piece I own next to it is actually a paper road, and it has sewer in there that my sewer was hooked up to years ago, hooked back up to it, and then that filled up and no one knew where it went. So I had to unhook it from the side sewer going up to the hill to Court's Mansion, and now hook it into the other street on Court Street and pay for it twice. But there is a sewer line. There are manholes going up towards Court's Mansion.
Okay.
And the proposal you just said, can be made a condition of approval, and then they wouldn't have to come back?
Right, you could approve it with, with a couple of alternatives. So you could approve the alternative that is presented based on this map. You can approve it with the alternative with the line redrawn following the fence line more closely to make it more straight, more of a straight shot that way. And then you would also want to put the condition on, as Matt said, for the figuring out how to remedy the encroachments to the public right of way for both properties.
One question, though. If we were, like the one suggesting is to take this follow the fence all the way up.
Bert, I just need you to, thank you.
If we were to follow the fence line all the way up to there, that's going to make that piece far larger than the original piece that's being conveyed to Yantas down here. I'm not sure of their negotiations financially or anything else, but that's got to be taken into consideration. The other option may be to come up, move this line up to that retaining wall.
Okay.
If we're going to be changing everything, try to get it as close to even as we can. But I really would like to see, as long as we can get some kind of approval tonight, contingent upon those changes made. And then I have to go back and speak.
Right, that's why I
Mr.
was trying to
Yonta
get
and
to
Sasso.
the different alternatives being accepted by the board. So ultimately what is decided, the Yantas not being here, we can't make the final decision. But if they decided to go with one of the other alternatives other than you've shown us initially, then that would be okay as well without having to come back to the planning board.
Can you tell by your drawings how many square feet that really is?
No, not right.
A
Not,
rough estimate? Is it more than 50
Not
square
really.
feet?
not without going home and running it through the computer.
Bert, as a planning board member, I would say that I'm not so concerned about following that fence all the way back because that is a chunk of land. But I think the retaining wall, which is a fixed structure between the two properties, might be a good path right here between your parcel B and your parcel A to follow on that map. Is that reasonable? Or am I looking at the map properly?
Right, that's what he was offering as an
Bert, between
alternative.
parcel B and parcel A, can we follow the retaining wall right there?
Here's the wall.
Yeah.
Where your wall is?
That's the wall.
Can we follow that wall?
Me, if
Whose-
we could
whose
follow
wall is
this
that?
wall back past the pole or to here and then cut back over like this, I'd have no problem with that if they wanted to move their fence later on. You know,
Yeah,
that way.
I
it's
mean,
still-
the lines that you have are fine. I just think between parcel B and parcel A, the wall would be a more natural for mapping purposes to kind of circle around the house versus the zigzag that we have. Am I reading the map properly?
Well, I
I'm
think
sorry,
that's,
Rob,
I
I'm not
think
really
that,
picking
Robert,
up.
I think that's why we chose the
Robert.
fence too, because
This
the
line
property
here
is
is
being
the line.
used by the other, by the,
This is the property
and
line.
maintained by Johnson.
Saying use the wall to here
Okay.
and then come back.
And then,
go
and
that
then
way.
follow what you had.
Follow what you had.
Whose wall is that? I mean, have you been maintaining
He
the
put-
wall?
Well, I shouldn't say he. Jantis put it in way back when we weren't sure where the property lines were. But if you look how this went, this wall followed the fence, and that's where we thought the whole line went. All our well, for the last 30 years. It's the way we thought it was.
Fucking tiny little area. I mean, if he is, if Mr. Johnson as a property owner is happy with this and Yantas are happy with this, it's not for me to,
We just have to put the language in to take care of,
it just has to be subject to engineering approval and
The city- the
obviously
the encroachments
Corp
into this,
council
yeah.
to deal with the encroachment. The parties have to come back. This is off.
and this can be taken care of at staff level then? Or does this have to come back? At staff.
I think it can be decided at staff level, but it may come to a point where the city may have to do another lot line revision.
Right.
Yeah.
Depending upon whether they just do easements and licenses or whether they decide to actually do fee title to it.
For the purpose of this application.
Yeah. And Matt, just to clarify, as it's presented right now, aside from the encroachment issues into the city's right of way, this is acceptable, as far as,
Yeah, as far as the city.
if they opt to go with this option, right? This is,
They're gonna require-
Which is it that you want? You wanted it to come up here and then go back?
well, that'll be up, I mean, we're offering alternatives.
Alternatives that
If you,
we could work out.
if you choose to stay with this one, it's acceptable.
Okay.
But again, we're gonna, whatever one you come to an agreement on, both parties,
They'll
the,
accept.
Okay.
we'll accept, but it also has to contain the language like a corporation council said to address the encroachment issues into the city's right of way. That, so that language, and whatever you choose to do is going to have to include that language. And if you choose to go with the other options that Sue talked about tonight, or Robert, that can be taken care of at staff level. Doesn't have to come back here, but again, it has to, we need to take care of the encroachment issues with the city's right of way.
Okay.
Basically, the city has to research this in a nutshell and determine whether they agree or not. And if they agree, what the city wants to do about it with the owners.
Okay.
So it'll be an ongoing discussion with Corp Council.
And we know that there's an issue of getting this done in a timely fashion between the two parties, right? So this, what we talked about, it could be taken care of at staff level. You don't have to wait until September to come back. That's
Okay.
okay. So,
if the current purchaser is willing to close, you'll just continue to work with them in the future to
Okay.
rectify this, because you're going to want to get it rectified anyways.
Yes. Thank you.
so you can, yeah, okay. I don't want to reinvent or anything like that. So, all right, we got the seeker first, yeah. Pull this up here. All right, so under seeker, this is a type 2 action, so no further review of the board is required at this time. And at this time, I'll make a motion that we approve item number 2. And we have Matt Gillis with a second, and Sue is going to read the board policies and the conditions of approval.
Okay, so it would be Board Policy 6, and it would be approved subject to engineering and Corporation Council research encroachments within the right-of-way, returning to staff with the alternative of the final subdivision layout, and naming the city as additionally insured until the final resolution of the encroachments is decided by both property owners. We would need 5 final paper copies and 1 Mylar, along with the final written descriptions of the resultant parcels once we determine which way we're going, which direction we're headed.
We do have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right, good luck. All right. All right, thank you, folks.
Keep one of them.
All right, moving on to new business. Item number 4 is 75 Clarendon Avenue. Site plan to erect a canopy and expand an outdoor seating. Section block and lot is 48.74-1-27. Seeker determination. Zone M1, Ward 6, 75 Clarendon Ice House LLC is the applicant owner.
The applicant called us today. He is not feeling well, so he is not able to make the meeting tonight. However, I did go over with him some of the questions that we had at staff level. Wait, are we doing Home Street?
No, this is Clarendon.
We skipped Home. Wait a minute. I was gonna say, wait a second, 84 Home. Well, 84 Home is actually the next one. We
I
skipped one.
apologize. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going by one sheet here. Okay. We're still under public hearings.
Yes.
Okay. This is item number 3. 84 Hone Street, special permit for an artist space. Section block and lot is 56.42-7-15. Secret determination, zone RT, Ronda Historic District. It's in Heritage Area, Ward 9. Judith Mailer Steinfeld and Emily Steinfeld are the applicants and owners. Anybody besides the applicant and owners wishing to speak on item number 3? Okay, we're gonna have to shut that door thing too. Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Emily Steinfeld.
Okay. All right. So tell us what you want to do.
I have a storefront and in the house that I own, and I would like to have special exhibitions. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. And studio space for artists.
So in your application, you say that your hours would be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Is that what you're thinking, or are you?
But it would be variable. It would be over the course, like there would be a 6-week exhibition, and it probably would be less hours than that. That would be the maximum amount that I'm asking for, but it would most likely be less than that.
And you would be using this for your own, as your own artist space, gallery type space, but then you would also rent it out, like for maybe a pop-up kind of art show or whatever. That's
Okay.
Okay. It's beautiful space.
Thank you.
Any signage?
And as far as parking goes, what's the requirements for that?
So Robert was right. This was a special permit in the past for a small grocery store a couple they never pursued it.
driveway, a little bit of parking in the back.
Yeah.
3 spots, I think, were the original application.
And they got it. So that goes with the property then, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
Commercial space has been like that since the 1800s, so I don't see.
yeah. Any questions? No? Okay. All right, so under seeker, this is a type 2 action, so no further review of the board is required. You're drafting the policies right now, I see.
Right, but you do
Okay.
need to talk about a term. It is a special permit.
Okay, well, usually with special permits, the first time a person comes with their application, we are tending to have a 1-year term for the first term, just to see how everything goes, right? You come back at that end of that year, things are fine. There's no police reports or anything like that that would jump out at us, and we'll be inclined to extend that for a longer period of time. So that's typically what we do with all applicants. So, okay, and everybody's inclined to do that for this one. Okay, so everybody, we're going for a 1 year. All right. There is no Knox box, but that would be nice to have on here. All right. A Knox box is for after hours access by the fire department in case, and so they're not breaking windows. It's a box that gets mounted on the building.
Okay.
Staff will talk to you about that. That's going to be a condition of approval.
Okay.
Okay.
The fire department has a key to the box, and inside the box is your key to your property so that they can open the door versus breaking it down.
That sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Lots of places around Kingston have it, lots. So he does too. Yeah. Okay, so we did seeker, the term. So at this time, I'll make a motion that we approve item number 3 for a period of 1 year with board policies 6, 10, 11, 19, and 25. And that's it, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Do I have a second on that? Right, Robert Jacobson with a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Good luck. Thank you.
And then
All right, now we'll go to number 4. I think I might have missed some signing there too, but all right. So this is the app, this is the person who couldn't show up right tonight. Okay, I gotta do that one.
Right, so the next one, 75, did you enter it into the record again?
This will be the second time. Let me just do it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
All right, we're in new business now. Item number 4 is 75 Clarendon Avenue, site plan to erect a canopy and expand outdoor seating. Section block and lot is 48.74-1-27. Seeker determination, zone M1, Ward 6, 75 Clarendon Ice House LLC is the applicant owner.
Okay, so as I said earlier, the applicant is unable to be here this evening, but it's essentially outdoor seating right now for a brewery that exists over there. They just want to put a hard canopy cover over it for weather-related events. It's not really increasing anything. Hours of operation are pretty much Friday and Saturday only, 4 to 9 p.m. He does not have any additional lighting or signage at this time planned. He understands that if he wants signage, he'll come back. As far as outdoor music, we talked about that. He does not have anything at this time, but we talked about the noise ordinance being a condition of approval as well. And we also spoke about a Knox box, and he agreed that he would put one on. So with that, there really isn't any substantial changes. It's in a manufacturing district, essentially. There's very limited residential around there. It's been existing. We have no complaints on file. So we would recommend at staff level it get approved.
Everybody can, okay.
4A, oh, you want to do seeker first?
Yeah, we're gonna do seeker first, but I'll say, so under seeker, it's type 2 action, so no further review of the board is required. Okay, Robert Jacobson has a motion to approve item number 4.
With 4A, 6, 19, and 25, the Knox box.
Sage Newkirk with a second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right. All right, moving on to item number 5 is 451 Washington Avenue, a site plan to install new business identification signage. Section block and lot is 48.71-2-16, Zone C2, Ward 1, Atlas Sign Industries is the applicant. North Star Bank, Upstate NY, in parentheses, Bank of America is the owner. Welcome. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Can you state your name for the record, please?
Darren Katz.
So fire away. What are you planning on doing here?
Basically, it's a rebranding of existing signage, new logo branding for the Bank of America. They have 2 freestanding signs existing and they have 2 wall signs existing. And they're just proposing.
Kyla does have it up on the screen. If
Okay.
you want to stand up there and point to things, that's fine. The board members all have this as well in their packets, so.
Everything you see is existing. You could see the befores and the afters. There's the current Bank of America sign and there's the proposed with all of the dimensions and measurements. It's not going to impede anywhere more onto the roadway as much as the new sign does as well.
These are all internally illuminated, correct?
Yes.
And even the one up on the top of the building, that's going to be illuminated as well? Okay.
There's one on each side of the building as well.
Okay.
Not just 2 total signs, but each wall.
Any questions from the board?
No, I don't have any issue with this. I'll be honest with you. I kind of make the bank rounds during the course of the week.
Yeah.
And they've been renovating inside and outside and they're cleaning the bank up and making it look nice. So
Good.
these are all the normal signs in the same place. So I don't see any issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's not part of our application, but the project also involves painting the exterior, changing the color scheme of the exterior from the natural wood color tones to a white. And I kind of, I like the refresh, it freshens it up a lot.
Yeah.
I think
We've also
it's,
updated
I
the
think it's
railings and the handicap.
right.
Okay.
Itself to make it a little more appealing.
Okay. Thank you. Under seeker, this is a type 2 action, so no further review of the board is required. At this time, I'll make a motion that we approve item number 5 with board policy 6 and 10. That's it, right? Okay. I have a second. Matt Gillis with a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, sir. Yeah. You too.
Next application is Ulster Savings Bank. I'm going to recuse myself just due to an ongoing business relationship with them.
Okay.
All right.
I guess you can leave the building.
Well,
Okay.
we're going to adjourn. He doesn't want to stay to adjourn.
Yeah, you can stay to adjourn. I tried. All right, item number 6, 180 Schwenk Drive, installation of 2 new monument style signs and 1 electronic reader board monument sign. Section block and lot is 48.71-1-6, seeker determination type 2, Ward 2, Zone C2, Heritage Area. Timely Signs is the applicant. Ulster Savings Bank is the owner. Okay.
Let the
Welcome,
record
fellas.
show that John used to be a board member.
That's right, many years.
John needs no introduction. I'm Paul Bikert from Timely Signs.
And I'm John Finch from Ulster Savings Bank.
All right. Fire away.
Okay, should I stand up and do the Vanna way?
Comfortable?
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I don't get an opportunity to do this that often, so I'm going to take advantage. Could you skip to the next page that shows the existing sign? Okay. Ulster Savings at their headquarters at Schwenk Drive have 3 of these similar carved wood. Actually, they're sandblasted, and they have been there for as long as I've been working in Kingston now at Timely Signs, which is about 20 years. That we've kind of painted them, and they're at the end of their life. The bank addressed an interest to us in having a more modern look for their monuments. So if you can go to just the next page after this one. Yeah, so this is kind of a look that they've established at some of their other locations. It's a lighter color background. They have a logo, it's black lettering with a white US seal. And this particular monument sign includes an electronic message center, okay, which are starting to become a thing. I think one of the issues that we're going to address, and I did send a letter earlier today, was some concern about how the electronic message center was going to be used. So I think Eric Kitchen is interested in crafting, some type of legislation or code requirements for these particular types of signs with some guardrails in terms of what can and cannot be done with them. And we're more than happy to work with the building department and the planning board to make sure that we install this and it gets used by Ulster Savings in a very responsible and community-minded way. So there are 3 total signs. This is the primary one that faces the intersection of Washington and Hurley Avenue, Schwenk Drive, where they meet. It's single-sided and it faces out toward the intersection. It's set a fair distance away from the road. It's hard to see here, but it's a fair distance away. It's the electronic message center. If you go back to the first page, please. The electronic message center is really only a 3-foot by 5-foot panel. The purpose for this is really for the bank to highlight to a small degree some of the services they offer, but with their 772 years, people kind of already know what they offer. So the primary use of this display is going to be to highlight community events. It will be available, as you know, the Ulster Charitable Foundation supports a lot of not-for-profit organizations and does a lot of good work in the community. They'll be using this as kind of a quote-unquote digital banner to promote events for the people that they support. And it'll also be available for, City of Kingston fireworks. And I'm sure that it'll be available and easy to change for the community. That's really, that was Bill Calderera, the president's vision of doing this. It's really not to promote mortgage rates or what the current CD rate is. That information is easily available by just going to their website. This is more for the purpose of promoting community. The other thing that this, all in New York State, all of these electronic message centers are able to be linked for Amber Alerts. They're required to, but these can also be used for City of Kingston alerts, flood warnings, et cetera. Street, it's a pretty easy thing to update from a mobile phone. This unit has a lifetime cellular service antenna inside. So whether the person in marketing or their information technologies department is working from home, is on the road, you can update it from your mobile, you can do a remote access. That's dedicated cellular line is devoted solely to this unit, and it doesn't interfere with any of the banking communications. So it's not a security risk. Surprisingly, John, no one from your organization has brought that up. So you must have a very secure operation. Do you guys have any questions about this? We can go to the other smaller signs. Those do
I
not
just want to
have.
add that
Yeah.
this did go through the Heritage Commission, and they had no issue with it. Another thing that would be happening is that previously, you see in the one photo, there used to be banners that would be hung. Those are no longer going to be hanging around the building. So this digital display will take the place of those. And then the concern with the Heritage, there were a couple. One was that it wouldn't be a flashing, there wouldn't be a lot of moving parts. I think the memo that you just got came through today, kind of describes how the transition, it'll be instantaneous. So there's going to be no fading in, fading out. There wouldn't be any of that type of movement to distract drivers at the intersection. That was one concern. The other concern was the lighting and how it would be controlled. So it would be, faded in the evening hours. So it wouldn't be as intense of a light in the evening hours. And I think is it on 24/7, the light?
The municipality gets to set the parameters in which the message center can start operating and end operation. So you guys can decide that. I did provide the building department a couple of example codes that regulate the electronic message center. One is the town of Poughkeepsie. They adopted that policy at least 10 years ago. So they were kind of out front. Their message change window is every 12 hours, which I think is a little too restrictive. The town of Ulster is every 8 seconds, which is very quick. So I think 8 seconds is way too fast. I think 12 hours is way too slow. As I stated in the original project narrative, as well as this, addressing the particular code requirements with the flashing. I'm probably thinking maybe every 15 seconds, every 30 seconds. And honestly, depending on what content the bank has to share and how many events are going on, it's entirely possible that message will be up there for 3 days without changing. So anything that you guys want, any guardrails or limitations that you want to put on the use of this, at least for this client, there's not really going to be an issue. However, whatever you set forth moving forward, not every client is going to have the same purpose for this technology. So I would be, as we move forward, I would carefully consider that. The other thing, as far as self-dimming, this does dim down at night. There are instances, if you drive down Ulster Avenue, you'll see a board that doesn't self-dim, and at night, it's really intrusive and it really hurts your eyes and you can't read the text that's on it because it's too bright. These automatically dim. They have a photo cell on them, and as the sun goes down, they bring the brightness down, so it's at a reasonable level. In addition to that, the software will also allow it to dim even further. There's something that I didn't cover in that letter, but I thought it's worth mentioning. Because these are RGB displays, every color on them is extremely vibrant. It's entirely possible for the bank or even the board, if they wanted to adopt a color palette. I know we will, because we want it to look integrated into the sign and the landscape. So we're going to do that internally with the bank. We're going to choose less saturated colors so that when they're backlit, they don't look like, the RGB test tone of, when the video signal goes out. You know what I'm saying? Like the greens, the blues, the reds, they become really saturated. It's possible within the RGB color spectrum that you can choose muted colors that will look more like a traditional sign and less like a TV monitor, if that makes sense. One of the things I did want to offer to the board, and I mentioned this to HLPC and HAC, and it's possible to get all boards together. Watchfire, who is our preferred supplier on these electronic message center, has a regional salesperson. His name is Evan Walsh. He's really great. He has a demo truck that he brings up. He can show this display. This display is not pixelated. It's the highest resolution they offer, which is a 6 millimeter. 6 millimeter is the space between the pixels. So when you look at this, it looks like a flat screen monitor. It's going to be very clean, no like bright dots. He'll bring his demo truck up to show you. He'll show you how they auto dim. We can do it in the evening. So like, you know, there's light and then we can show it at darkness so you can see how much it dims down. He can also show how the messages will change. It's instantaneous. You can choose any of the intervals. Like I said, they're fully capable of video and showing movies, but it's really not the purpose of this. We're probably using 1/20th of the technology for this particular application, but the boards are very powerful. And, you know, the bank agrees that this isn't the place to watch a movie while you're, you know, waiting for the green light. So he's more than willing to come up. There's no cost to the board. It's just in good faith so you guys can really see that. We've already done it for the bank and they've seen it. And they've made a selection, you know, they've made their decision based on seeing a live demo of the technology. So I think when it comes to doing legislation around this type of technology, I think it would be very helpful to do that. And we're more than willing to steer that and schedule it around any time that you'd like to do that. Only if it's of interest to you.
Well, we haven't seen too many of these signs come through the planning board. And, you know, to have the discussion right now, I'm glad that you were sharing the information that you have about how the operation and also, you know, setting the parameters for how it is operated. You know, that's something that's new to this board to discuss that. And we really don't have anything, but is this something we can do tonight or do we got to?
You guys can discuss it, but obviously you can't approve anything.
Yeah.
But the way it is proposed, I don't make the determination. The code enforcement officer would be making any kind of determination, but I don't see as it's proposed it violating our code at all. The big issues would be approval is that the picture that's on there is static. It's not a moving. It's not like a video showing on there. That there's a static picture. You know, that the changes, you know, every 30 seconds or so at least, you know, not a constant. So there's not this moving, and that there be no flashing lights when it's changing from one static picture to another static picture.
Yeah.
When that instantaneous change occurs, that there's no like flash or anything in between, that it's just one picture to the other. Those would seem to be the conditions that would assure that it would not be violating these portions of our code. So,
Okay.
So I believe as they are proposing it that it would be in accordance with the code.
Our intention is for it to be classy, not to be.
Oh, and there's no
showy
doubt
and,
about that. We're just,
So,
like I
and-
said,
and we'll work with you if there's something that doesn't work after we do it, you know, we'll try different things.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like with the auto dim issue, obviously, you know, until it's actually functioning, it's hard to tell whether that's working or not. But we do have, and I kind of added it on as a possible condition that we have board policy 4 and 4A, and that's kind of to capture after the fact, once lighting is installed and functional, that if we need to go back in and make adjustments, we have that ability to do so and work with the applicant to do that. So
One of the opportunities I see with this particular project is that we could use this as a test case. In other words, we could, once installed, I mean, obviously the bank runs the risk of installing something if you absolutely hate it, or it's just going to be a black box at the end of it. I don't think that's going to happen, but you could use this to set the level of brightness. You know what I mean? You can also look at the number of messages, how they look. The messages that you can put up on here can be adjusted in saturation level so that they're not too vibrant. You'll be able to see it during the day, in the evening. You'll be able to see the messages change. We can sit there and look at what an 8-second message change interval looks like
Right.
and see if that's incredibly offensive. We can also, I don't think we want to sit and wait for a 12-hour message change. I think we can imagine how long that is, but you can just see how quickly a message changes. I think one of the things we have to look at, and I probably have to spend some time at the intersection, is to see how long a red light interval is for, the traffic in one of the directions. I would assume it's similar, Hurley Ave, Schwenk Drive, and then Washington Ave. I don't know whether one is longer, but I suppose we would probably just take whatever the longer interval is, if they're not the same, and just use that. And like I said, it really depends on how much content there is to share. Because
gonna
if
say-
they're only, if they're promoting 2
Right.
events, maybe every hour they switch it. So I think for this, it's not like a Las Vegas Convention Center where they have 25 things going on at once. So I think this is kind of the entry level for this. It's relatively small, it's well integrated, and we have a very responsible client who's willing to be very accommodating on how it's used. So
And I agree. There has to be flexibility because obviously the content, if you're doing an Amber Alert versus promoting an event, they're two separate and distinct type of messages that you want to get out there. So, there's got to be that flexibility. And I appreciate the fact that, your client is willing to work with the city of Kingston here. I also see this as an opportunity, like you said, not only as a test case, but we're also in the midst of redoing our whole zoning code. So I think this is really timely to be talking about this at the table right now, looking forward in that direction at the same time.
And I think that we can use some of the verbiage in your communication to this office and incorporate that into the decision that we have tonight, right? I mean, and does that sound good? That seems reasonable what they presented in the email, right? And do we have to set a time frame on how soon it gets changed, or we just leave it up to them and leave it flexible? If we get complaints, what do we do?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, what is a minimum time you would need in between message changes?
Well,
so we can establish that at least tonight.
So Sue brought up an interesting comment, was that if you've ever been driving down the thruway and you see an Amber Alert, usually those messages are posted on fairly low-tech boards, so they can't really fit a lot of text or descriptions of the vehicle or the missing person in one screen. So for that instance, you may have 3 screens that go through the Amber Alert system. So it'll say Amber Alert. It'll say, brunette, female, age 30, and then the second one will say a car or some description. You know what I mean? So you may have 4 slides that happen in succession. I think for the emergency messaging, you may have a faster interval time, but for like,
So let's say
promotional
a typical, you're advertising
Yeah.
your services or an event that's coming up that's 2 weeks away, or so. What would be a normal and accept, something that you would look for as far as a time interval between message changes? I know you mentioned 15 seconds before.
I think that's might be too fast.
Okay, I'm just,
If you're talking about an event, I mean, you got to think about, people are driving through that intersection. So you're going to be capturing either people driving or people that are stopped. And
Right.
I mean, I think you're looking at 30 to 60 seconds at least for a message
I was
to
actually
be
going to
up.
say, I was going to say 30 seconds is fine.
Yeah.
There will be, most of the time, we had a veterans luncheon last week at the bank, and we would have put up the banner, welcome veterans, thank you for your service. In the morning, it would have stayed up for 8 hours probably.
Right.
But as far as setting a minimum,
I'm comfortable with 30 seconds. I mean, it is, I guess it is what the tough thing is we're, John and I and the Ulster Savings team is really laser focused on what we're using this particular technology for. you have to realize that once you establish this code, it's going to be applied to many, many different like bars, restaurants. People are going to want to put a menu up there that changes. For this, I would say 30 seconds is fine. I would say that if you were going to do a digital board that maybe took the place of like in a location, let's just say, for instance, at the traffic circle, the new traffic circle, there's a billboard up there on the building, on People's Place building, and it has 3 panels on it. We had talked to Christine about possibly replacing that with a really classy panel, just designed to look like a regular, like it is now, with, instead of it being a black box, we'd make it white, we'd put molding on it, welcome to historic Kingston, and having, an underwriter for that, right? So it would say Ulster Savings, and that is a static message that's on the left. And then the other 2/3 change and say, bike for cancer care, September 25th, 2022 at Beach Stadium. And maybe that stays up for a minute. And then the changes to some other event. If you're using something for advertising purposes, I don't consider this board an advertising purpose. So
I don't think this is a one size fits all solution, quite honestly, because
you'd have to really think about it a little bit more.
There's different applications, different locations. You almost have to look at them individually.
But a few subsequent applications may look to tonight's meeting as a benchmark for how.
Yeah, that's what you have to be careful of. That you're not too restrictive, or you're not too lenient.
Right.
If you'd like, I'll take a look into some of the other municipalities and see the 2 that I've worked in, which was Town of Ulster. We've done boards in Town of Ulster. We've done boards in City of Poughkeepsie, or not City. I'm sorry, City of Poughkeepsie is a town of Poughkeepsie.
Would you be open to the idea of having the board approve the sign in its concept and then working out those parameters?
Sure.
In the next month or 2 as we maybe look into a couple other communities and coming back with a final kind of set of parameters, but allowing you to go forward with the technology, at least starting to plan that out. I don't know if that would be something you'd be open to.
We get you have to protect the city for future, no question. So we're not looking to.
So one of the things you have to realize is that once these boards are installed, the software, you can adjust the software to do whatever you want. You don't have to order a new board if the regulation changes. You know what I'm saying? If you do a trial and say, hey, we're gonna use this as a test case, and we're gonna demonstrate what is you could even use this and have a video done of it that says, this is how not to use it. You're not flashing messages up there. You're not changing it rapidly. You're not swiping or dissolving or flashing from screen to screen. These can be used very poorly, and they can be used very responsibly. And I think it's all the same technology. It's like any other technology. It can be used and designed poorly, and it can be used and designed very well. So the technology is the same. It's who's at the seat and who's adjusting the typography and making the colors work and making things readable. It's a lot of design, but the technology, it's just a black box at the end of the day. So if we have a black box and you guys decide we need longer message intervals, then we just adjust.
You could hold a meeting up there, and we'll do what you tell us to do. Let me see what it looks like if you had a 5-second turnover, what happens, or if it's brighter, or if it does scroll or moves. And we make those things happen, right? Just to show you.
You can. Most definitely.
Okay.
But we can set some parameters tonight, right? And we're gonna do that, right?
We've agreed to everything in those 2 letters in writing.
In the email you're talking about,
that one, and there's also a previous letter that basically goes over the project scope and what the intent was. That one's more focused on addressing the flashing, rotating,
right,
varying intensity.
And that's, I want to incorporate that into
Yeah,
tonight's
that,
decision
and there's
too.
some other language in the other one, but in the first one, but
Okay. I just want to make sure that we get all of the talking points and the parameters set. So the static message will be displayed with constant illumination and no moving or flashing elements or graphics. When the content on screen changes, it will happen instantly without fading, swiping left or right, and without any movement whatsoever. We can just copy this down.
Mhm.
Yeah. That sound good to everybody? That one? Okay. During daylight hours, the display remains at a constant intensity. Now, we talked about dimming at night. Is that going to occur? Okay. Yes. And what language do we need to put with that? Just it will dim at night to
I have the board policies. for
okay.
it.
So we'll address that with 4 and 4A, right? The message change will occur no sooner than every 30 seconds.
I
Right?
just put that in arbitrarily, but
For now.
if it needs to be
And
longer, it can be longer.
that's just on, your regular day-to-day operation, right?
Mhm.
We have amber alerts, weather alerts,
Anything that's
Severe
urgent.
weather, right.
that, yeah. I mean, those are unique events. So,
I think what happens in that case, I'm relatively certain that what happens is that messaging gets pushed through to the board, and whatever the National Weather Service is pushing out, or whatever the Amber Alert system, if it's 3 slides, you're going to get 3 slides on
Yeah.
that board. If it's 1, it's 1.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll talk with Evan about how that happens. I think it's
About
like
that.
they call them widgets. It's a little app that you
Right. Yeah, I
subscribe
didn't think
to.
about that. It might be just preset by the
Pretty much, it happens
agency.
instantaneously. It goes
Yeah.
out like the texts you get for
Right.
net weather
Yeah.
alerts, and whatever that content is just shows up on your board. Even if you're in the middle of doing a message, it just takes over. It's
Right.
it's kind of not a hostile takeover, but an emergency takeover of the technology for the greater good. So
all right. What else do we need to put in there for?
That the banners will no longer be used on the building.
Okay.
And that's all I had.
And do we need some clarification from the zoning enforcement officer or building safety with what's going?
I can confirm with
Okay.
building.
no, those are okay. There's the
Right.
other two. If you, this is the only one with an electronic message.
Okay.
There are 2 on the other corners that
I'm
are.
gonna miss that whole thing too. So,
Yes,
okay.
these.
They were being replaced.
Okay.
And it shows the locations of those. That's
The one prior will replace this.
So that the electronic one will be at Washington and Schwenk.
Correct.
Okay.
By each of the 2 driveways.
one-
the
there's
on
another
Schwank, the
one,
on
too.
Washington.
All right.
there's another one, which is, that one's on Washington.
Yeah, well, you have the entryway off of
Yeah.
Schwank,
Yep.
which is that one right
Yep.
there.
Okay.
And then you have the other entry off of Washington by the railroad tracks. That's that sign right there.
Yeah. So 2 signs like that and one of the,
Mhm.
yes, the electronic one. Okay.
And with these signs, it was noted with Heritage too, they both have the internal illumination, but there's an external light at the same time.
Shining up.
Yeah, we're trying to emulate this one just has external illumination. The client has the choice. I think they've chosen to do everything consistently.
Oh,
So
okay.
the other
But
one
the
will
other
have a
one
halo
has-
like the
okay.
one on the building. This one will have like just a halo lighting around it. And then we're going to switch out the fixture. Right now it's a metal halide. We're probably going to go with like a warm, low voltage, kind of low wattage fixture that kind of lights both the landscape and the structure without overwhelming, the logo. It'll kind of light the bottom of it, and then the logo will be lit. Because I think just having the lettering light up, it just looks like it's floating in space. And the landscape, it's more landscape lighting than it is sign lighting. But you really need something to highlight the entire structure. And the logo will just have like a soft halo on it. I'm trying to, very similar to Ulster Federal, how it has black letters and it's just a white halo, it just kind of lights up at night.
Right.
You've seen that? That one's been there for a long time, 10 years, probably.
Okay.
Attractive.
So one of the things that you could do that other municipalities do is to limit the percentage of digital reader board to signage. By doing that, like you're not giving people permission to put like just a giant reader board out there. Like if you're going to use it as a sign, it has to have your company name. You know, a lot of times they'll say it's no more than 25% or it's no more than 50% of the square footage of the sign. Does that make sense? Like, so otherwise, like if you just say, if you don't put a limit on that, then someone can just put a 4 foot by 8 foot black box.
Right.
And so those things just look like flat screens stuck on the side of the road and they don't really integrate. They don't have an opportunity to tie into the color or the architecture of the building. So for freestanding signs, I think you actually definitely need some type of a structure around it to make it look like it's integrated into the site.
Right.
For wall signs, you probably need a smaller percentage of signage around it, even like insisting that the frame be a complementary color to the building, or there's a header panel on it that states, you know, who the sign belongs to or what company it is. That way you're kind of not forcing people, but encouraging people to consider like where it's placed on the building. Like all of your regular wall sign legislation in terms of where it can be, how high off the ground, how, you know, what the minimum height below could all apply to it. But, you know, when you start looking at every electronic message center should be linked to some other sign by a percentage. Usually the wall sign should be a little bit higher because that's going to have, you know, like maybe it's 50% for the wall and maybe it's 50% for the freestanding sign. I don't know. That's a simple equation, but we could do some illustrations of what that might look like if you like, just to see what, you know, how that integrates. One of the things we like, I don't like just seeing black boxes. They look kind of stark and impersonal. Like when you wrap it in like, you know, like a color and it just looks like it's part of the sign rather than just a you know, a big TV on the side of a building or something.
And some of this stuff can be taken care of, like with heritage area, you know, they can guide you, or even the broader zoning change that's coming through
That's
right
what
now, you
Paul
know?
was
Yeah,
saying, is that in the code,
yeah,
I think those were
Sure.
some good suggestions.
yeah.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and it all makes sense, you know, and this is an emerging, well, not really emerging, but you know, for us, that we don't have too many of these things come across our board, you know, and to have this type of discussion and, you know, proposing how future signs like this should be handled, I think it's good, you know, and I'm glad we're doing that right now.
Yeah, the technology is not going away, but I think setting up responsible use and guidelines is good because, you know, we've been working on these for probably about 15 years and they're so easy to use. The prices are actually coming down quite a bit and they're getting much more user friendly.
And 10 years from now, we'll be discussing holograms,
Well,
you know.
we still need physical signs.
Yeah.
Wayne. That's, you know, we still
We'll
need
be
things
coming
to
through with
install.
that technology, you know. Yeah.
But you know, the improvement, there's so many great improvements happening between Midtown and downtown and uptown. I think there's opportunities to really, with your zoning change, to you know, encourage people to do something that really integrates. And you guys already do that. You have boards like the HLPC and HAC that focus on making sure that people do things that are that honor the building architecture and doesn't just look like something that was slapped on there without any thought. So as you know, it is difficult to go to 3, 2. Well, the meetings are combined now, but like there's a lot of oversight and they do a great job. But you know, as a person who our company's been in Kingston 50 years as of 2022, and you know, we want our work to look good. You know, we don't want to do things that look bad. So, you know, and we want you know, we want to do our part to make the city look great. And,
Good. Thank you.
yeah. So anything we can help you with, feel free to call, or I'll send you some notes on sizing, which definitely be a percentage, I think, of the overall square footage of the sign.
Yeah, any other communities? I know you know in here, town of Poughkeepsie and the town of Ulster, but if you know of other communities too that have this kind of legislation, just if you can shoot me there.
Yeah,
The
some
names,
do.
I can look them
yeah.
up.
I will. I'll just grab those code sections off Ecode 360 and
Yeah.
just send you PDFs of them. They're they vary pretty greatly. Some
I mean,
places
you
outlaw them.
obviously work in
Yeah.
other communities, so if you see something that works really well, like in New Paltz or something in terms of this kind of thing, or in Rosendale or in Poughkeepsie, you know, what are the good points of those
Yeah.
different?
I think you could take the good, throw away the bad. One of the things you guys could look at, like pretty much immediately, is if you're in the Lake Katrine area on 9W and you're going towards Saugerties, there's a commercial billboard that is full digital. You probably have seen it. It's right before Bread Alone. I think that has a 3-second interval change.
Okay.
So that's a really fast one. So when you're driving out there, I think it's 45 out there. So check that one out. I think it's either a 3 or a 5-second interval change. But honestly, 5 seconds is actually a pretty long time when you're going 45 miles an hour.
That's
But when you're at a stoplight,
right.
It might be fast. So again, it's all relative. Like, where are you going? If you're in 55 or 70 on the throughway, if you're going down to Atlantic City and you're on the expressway and you're blowing by billboard, those tend to stay actually static for longer than the one out on 9W does. So anyway, we're happy to work with you guys. And
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot.
All right, so under seeker, this is a type 2 action. No further review of the board is required. At this time, I'll make a motion that we approve item number 6. And just so, can you just reiterate the conditions and the board policies for us?
Well, we have board policy 4, 4A, and 6, that there would be a minimum of 30 seconds before a change, that there would be no movement, flashing components, or video type elements. We will confirm all of the language with the Building Safety Division. There will be, when the screen changes, it will be an automatic. There won't be fading or swiping or any other kind of delay. There will be auto dim at the evening hours, which will be worked out afterwards if they need to be changed, and all banners will be removed from the building.
Okay, thank you. That is a motion. Do I have a second on that? Matt Gillis with a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Also, the free checking banners have been removed.
Yeah,
They're down and they won't be going back up.
Okay.
Those are older photos. We've been working on this project for a long time.
All right. Thank you. Anything else here for the board? All right. Did you say you had a motion to adjourn? Sage Newkirk with a motion to adjourn. Robert Jacobson with a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.